negative or less than 10 nanograms per mil.
Okay, so if the cocaine was dissolved in a very small amount of alcohol and put in her drink and she ingested it that way,
Yes.
that would explain the cocaethylene that is apparently so incredibly important.
Right away, this testimony zeroes in on one of the biggest scientific battles in the case, cocaethylene. This compound forms when cocaine and alcohol are both present in the body, but the real courtroom fight isn't whether it exists. It's what its presence actually proves. Does it establish how the cocaine was consumed, or is the prosecution stretching the science? That's the question the jury has to wrestle with.
It would have to be a larger amount of ethanol, not just a little bit, in order to come up in the assays. So we're not talking like a teaspoon. I think somebody had said something crazy like vanilla before.
Well, you just said somebody said something crazy. That's interesting because you're saying that it came up in the comforter, the cocaethylene, correct?
In the vomitus, yes.
Okay, but Dr. Mithen's report specifically does not even have a numeric value. The response was so low.
Yet it's still persisting in other matrices a couple days later, so it just hadn't formed all the way probably.
It literally does not have a numeric value.
Did you catch that? The attorney just made a bold factual statement. She ingested liquid cocaine. But the expert immediately pushes back with, "You don't know that." In court, that distinction is everything. Attorneys can argue a theory, but experts are expected to stay grounded in what the evidence can scientifically support. Which side sounds more convincing to you so far?
That is how low it is.
Okay, but it's still persisting in other matrices days later, so we know that it was at a higher value then, even given its half-life.
Days later, when she's in the hospital receiving medication after medication after medication, trying to keep her alive on life support because she ingested liquid cocaine. Correct?
You don't know that.
Dr. Lindsay, you have heard three experts
You don't need to raise your voice.
testify.
Okay, have a seat, Ms. Collins. Just ask your question in a reasonable manner.
Dr. Lindsay, you have heard three experts testify that it was ingested and it had to be a liquid. It was in her drink.
Are you testifying? Because there's
Ma'am,
nothing.
please don't interject yourself. Just keep yourself calm as well. You don't ask questions.
Now the cross-examination shifts gears. Instead of debating chemistry, the prosecutor starts testing the expert's credibility. Asking whether calculations were documented is a classic courtroom strategy. If an expert reaches a major conclusion but can't show the work behind it, that gives the opposing side an opening to question how reliable those opinions really are.
Okay?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
There is nothing.
Now, what is your question? You said three experts said X. What is your question?
You've heard the three experts testify that it was ingested orally, correct?
I've heard them testify that it could have been ingested orally.
Have you heard them testify that there was no evidence that it was ingested in any other manner?
No, I haven't.
You haven't heard that testimony?
I have not. If you point it out, I would be happy to look at it.
Okay, so you didn't hear Dr. Carney's testimony when she described her autopsy.
That wouldn't show you whether it was ingested orally or by any other manner.
Okay, and Dr. Lindsay, you went on and on about pharmacokinetics and calculating a dose. Did you provide your calculations?
Did I provide my calculations? No, but anybody can do them. If it's a half-life of 30 half-lives in between the first and the second dose, you would be up to billions of milligrams.
Okay, so you don't have any math that supports that at all for pharmacokinetics?
I did it at one time, but it was so off the chart, I knew that it was incorrect.
Oh, so you knew that you were incorrect?
No, I knew that the pharmacokinetics did not make sense. So anybody can take, the other experts didn't.
Notice the tug of war over expertise. One side emphasizes that Dr. Lindsay isn't a forensic pathologist, while the witness reminds everyone she's a toxicologist. That's more than semantics. Trials often become battles over whose specialized knowledge applies to a particular question. The jury isn't just evaluating evidence. They're deciding which expert is speaking inside their lane.
Do the same calculations, and they could have, or they should have, they would have seen right away that it was not possible.
Well, you're saying it's not possible because you're refusing to acknowledge that it was ingested in liquid form, correct?
No, I'm not. I'm saying we don't know. It could have been ingested in liquid form, or it could have been used in another form. We just don't know.
Well, that's what you're saying, that you just don't know. But Dr. Carney was very positive when she did her autopsy report.
That wouldn't have shown, an autopsy report would not show whether someone had ingested it orally or ingested it through insufflation or injection. An autopsy would not show that.
Dr. Lindsay, are you a forensic pathologist?
No, I'm not a forensic pathologist, but I'm a toxicologist, and it would not show that. If you want to describe how it would show that, maybe that could enlighten me.
Dr. Lindsay, I am asking you the questions.
Okay, and I'm
Have you
correcting
ever
you.
performed an autopsy?
No.
This is an important turning point. The prosecutor is trying to expose what sounds like a contradiction. After reviewing the entire investigation, the expert still says there are multiple possible ways the cocaine could have entered the body. In criminal cases, uncertainty can matter just as much as certainty because the burden is on the prosecution to prove its theory beyond a reasonable doubt, not simply present a plausible one.
Did you hear Dr. Krolewski's testimony where he said that he would not even attempt to calculate using pharmacokinetics to try to calculate the dose?
He doesn't do that regularly in his practice. He's more of an analytical chemist. It was clear by the way he answered the questions, and that's why he wouldn't do the pharmacokinetic calculations. That's more of a biochemistry type thing.
Dr. Lindsay, that was not Dr. Krolewski's answer. You do know that, correct?
I listened to his testimony, and that's how I knew he didn't do that. He didn't do it on a regular basis. He's more of an analytical chemist toxicologist than a strict toxicologist who does pharmacokinetic modeling. I think he was open about that.
Okay. Dr. Lindsay, I know that you do. So you're saying that you reviewed everything in the investigation file and the testimony at the bond hearing, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
But you are here testifying that you think it's possible that Jake Benning was drinking 4 drinks out
And that's where this exchange comes full circle. The expert admits using an oral ingestion assumption for one calculation, but also insists the available evidence can't reliably determine the actual method of ingestion in this specific case. That's the tension the jury is left with. Are these scientific assumptions reasonable tools for analysis, or do they introduce too much uncertainty? Let me know in the comments. Which witness do you think came across as more credible in this exchange?
doing cocaine. How was she doing it again?
We don't know.
Okay, but what did you use for your pharmacokinetics calculation?
So that's a little bit different. What I'm saying is we don't know whether she ingested it orally or whether through insufflation or whether injection. We just don't know because the numbers don't tell us. And the only reliable numbers we have are from a tube that did not have preservative in it. So while a ratio in a proper tube might give us an idea of whether it was orally ingested in case it instead of insufflated, we didn't have that because we have the tube that didn't have the proper preservative in it.
Okay, so my question question is, for the pharmacokinetics that you testified about, I think at one point you said 16 to 8 balls. What was the ingestion method that you used for that pharmacokinetics calculation?
So I did assume an oral bioavailability for that. Oh, gosh, should have been using that before.
So you assumed liquid cocaine.
Cocaine taken orally.
Dissolved in a liquid.
It doesn't have to be dissolved in a liquid. It's the same thing if you take it orally or food, liquid, whatever. It's going through the metabolism that way instead of going through insufflation or vaginal insertion or whatever.
So you said that, and then immediately afterwards you said, but you can't calculate the pharmacokinetics with this case.
Correct.